For 7 years, I believed I had it all. A loving wife, a stable home, and a life filled with trust, laughter, and companionship. We weren't just partners. We were a team. We finished each other's sentences. We had inside jokes that no one else understood, and we could spend hours together without saying a word, just enjoying each other's presence. When people looked at us, they saw a couple who had figured it out. The kind of love that people dreamed of, or at least that's what I thought. But looking back now, I see the cracks. The tiny, insignificant moments that at the time didn't seem like much. Moments that I brushed off as normal. Moments that, if I had been paying closer attention, would have told me everything. The way she started staying up late, texting long after I had gone to bed. The way her laughter changed. It became forced, strained, like she was pretending to be present when, in reality, she was somewhere else. The way she slowly started pulling away from me, little by little. At first, it was subtle. She used to greet me at the door with a kiss. Then one day, she just stopped. She used to fall asleep with her head on my chest. But then, suddenly, she needed space at night, rolling over to the other side of the bed. She used to text me throughout the day, little things that didn't matter, like I saw a cute dog today, or what do you want for dinner? But then, silence. I told myself it was nothing. People change. Relationships evolve. Maybe she was just stressed or tired, or going through something she didn't know how to talk about. I should have asked more questions. I should have paid attention. Instead, I trusted her. And that was my biggest mistake. The first real red flag came one evening when we were sitting on the couch together, watching TV. Her phone vibrated on the table. Just once. She glanced at it, just a flick of her eyes. And then, just as quickly, she reached forward and flipped it face down. Something inside me tightened. That was new. She never used to do that. Who was that? I asked casually. She didn't even look at me. Just a work email. A work email. At 9:30 p.m. I forced myself to smile, to nod, to act like I wasn't suddenly drowning in suspicion. Because if it was just a work email, why did she need to hide it? I should have pressed her then. I should have looked deeper. But instead, I convinced myself that I was overthinking things. She wouldn't cheat. She wouldn't lie. This was my wife. The woman who promised me forever. The woman who, just a year ago, was holding my hand, saying she couldn't imagine her life without me. She wouldn't betray me. Would she? I forced myself to let it go. And that was mistake number 2. It started so subtly that I almost didn't notice. Almost. At first, it was little things, changes in her routine, shifts in her habits that individually meant nothing. But together, they painted a picture I wasn't ready to see. She became different, not all at once, but gradually, like a slow tide pulling away from the shore. She used to be open about everything. She would tell me about her day, complain about annoying coworkers, laugh about something dumb she saw online. But then the conversations got shorter. I'd ask, "How was your day?" And instead of her usual rambling, she'd just shrug and say, "Fine." I'd ask, "What's wrong?" And she'd smile, too quickly, too forced, and say, "Nothing. Just tired." At first, I believed her. But then came the phone. The phone was the first sign. She used to leave it everywhere. On the couch, on the kitchen counter, sometimes even forget it in the bathroom. She never cared. But suddenly, her phone was always with her. And it was always face down. At dinner. On the nightstand. Even when she was just watching TV. I noticed. "Why do you keep putting your phone face down?" I asked her one night, trying to sound casual. She barely looked up. "I don't know. Habit, I guess." Habit? Funny. That habit had never existed before. The late nights. Then she started going out more. "Just a girl's night," she'd say, throwing on perfume and fixing her hair in the mirror. She had always had friends, but these nights out, they were more frequent. Too frequent. "Who are you going with?" I asked one evening as she grabbed her purse. She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. You don't know them, she said with a quick smile. I don't know them? That was new. For 7 years, I had known every single one of her friends. I knew their names, their faces, their relationships, their drama. But now, she was going out with people I'd never heard of. Something felt wrong. The smell that gave her away. The moment I knew for sure came one night, when she stumbled through the front door at midnight. She was smiling, swaying just slightly, her hair a little messy. Hey, baby, she said, wrapping her arms around me in a loose, lazy hug. And that's when I smelled it. Cologne, but not mine. My stomach dropped. I froze, inhaling deeper, my mind racing. It wasn't just cologne, it was strong, the kind that lingered on skin, the kind that transferred when you were close to someone. Too close. You smell different, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. She laughed, pulling away too quickly. Oh, one of the girls sprayed perfume in the car. It must have rubbed off. Perfume. That wasn't perfume, but I didn't push. Not then, because deep down, I already knew. I just wasn't ready to admit it. The paranoia started small, like a tiny ember in the back of my mind. I told myself I was overthinking. She loved me. She would never hurt me. But the ember grew into a flame, and soon, it was impossible to ignore. Every time her phone vibrated, every time she left the house without a clear explanation, every time she laughed at a text and then quickly hid the screen, it ate at me. I tried to convince myself I was being ridiculous. You're just being insecure, I'd think. She's busy. She has her own life. She's allowed to have friends. But the truth? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The night that changed everything. It was 2 a.m. I woke up, groggy and disoriented, reaching for her instinctively. But her side of the bed was empty. The sheets were cold, like she'd been gone for a while. I sat up, blinking in the darkness, my heart already racing. The house was silent. The only sound the faint hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Then I heard it, a whisper. I froze, straining to listen. The sound was faint, coming from the hallway. Carefully, I slipped out of bed, my bare feet silent against the hardwood floor. As I approached the door, her voice became clearer, soft, hurried, like she was trying to keep her tone low, but couldn't quite contain the tension. The hallway encounter. She was standing in the dim light of the hallway, her back turned to me, one hand clutching her phone to her ear. I couldn't hear what the person on the other end was saying, but her replies sent a cold chill down my spine. No, it's fine, he's asleep. I told you I'll figure it out. I just need more time. I took a step closer, the floor creaking softly under my weight. She whipped around, her face pale, her eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights. Oh, she gasped, clutching the phone to her chest. You scared me. I folded my arms, my voice low and steady. Who are you talking to? She blinked rapidly, her hand trembling as she ended the call. What? Oh, just a friend, she stammered. A friend. At 2 a.m. Couldn't sleep, she added, forcing a laugh. I didn't want to wake you. Her explanation didn't sit right. Her laugh was hollow, her eyes darting everywhere except at me. The telltale flinch. I stepped closer, watching her carefully. What friend? I asked, my voice calm, but my heart pounding in my chest. She flinched so small, so quick, but I saw it. Her hand tightened around her phone as if it were a lifeline. You don't know them, she said quickly. Just someone I work with. My stomach churned. Someone she worked with. That made it worse, not better. The moment I knew, I didn't press her. I didn't ask for more details, didn't demand to see her phone. Because deep down, I already knew the truth. The way she avoided my eyes, the way she clutched that phone like her life depended on it, it all screamed guilt. When she finally slipped back into bed, muttering something about being tired, I lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling. My mind was racing. Every interaction we'd had over the past few months replaying in my head. The distance, the phone, the late nights, the smell of cologne. This wasn't in my head. This wasn't paranoia. This was something real. And that's when I decided I couldn't live like this anymore. I needed the truth. I deserved the truth. And I was going to get it no matter what it took. I don't want to be that guy. The paranoid husband. The one who spies, snoops, and sets traps for the woman he promised to trust. But I also didn't want to be the fool. The idiot who ignored the obvious signs. The guy who convinced himself that his gut feeling was just insecurity when in reality, it was the only thing telling him the truth. So I made a choice. I was going to find out what was really happening, even if it destroyed me. This setup. The next day, as soon as she left for work, I got to work. I drove to an electronics store across town, somewhere far enough away that I wouldn't risk bumping into anyone I knew. I walked straight to the surveillance section, my heart hammering as I scanned the rows of tiny, nearly undetectable cameras. I could feel the cashier's eyes on me as I picked one up. "Looking for something specific?" he asked too casually. I forced a chuckle. "Yeah, we've been having some package theft in the neighborhood. Just want to be safe." It wasn't entirely a lie, but the real theft I was worried about was happening inside my own home, choosing the perfect spot. Back home, I unboxed the camera with shaky hands. It was small, about the size of a coin, but powerful. Motion detection, night vision, remote access to my phone. Exactly what I needed. Now I just had to choose the right spot. I walked through the house, scanning every corner, every possible hiding place. The bedroom? Too risky. If she ever noticed something out of place, she'd get suspicious. The kitchen? Not useful. No one has an affair over a bowl of cereal. Then, my eyes landed on the living room. It was perfect. The couch. The space where she and I had spent countless nights together, curled up under blankets, watching bad TV and laughing at inside jokes. The same couch where lately she had been sitting alone, staring at her phone, smiling at messages I couldn't see. If anything was happening, it would happen here. Setting the trap, I positioned the camera high up on the bookshelf, nestled between some old novels she never touched. It had the perfect angle, a clear shot of the front door, the couch, and just enough of the hallway leading to the stairs. If someone came in while I wasn't home, I would know. I connected it to my phone, ran a few tests. The image was crystal clear. It was done. Now all that was left was to wait. The lie that made it happen. That evening, as we ate dinner, I stayed quiet, watching her closely. She was scrolling through her phone again, smiling at something she didn't share with me. I forced a casual tone. "Hey, I forgot to tell you, I have a last-minute work trip this weekend." Her fingers froze over the screen. For just a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But I did. She quickly recovered, looking up with a neutral expression. "Oh, how long?" "Just a night," I said, taking a sip of my drink. "Leaving Friday afternoon, back Saturday morning." She nodded slowly. "Okay, that's not too bad." That's when I saw it. The relief. A small exhale, the slightest relaxation of her shoulders. Like she had just won something. Like she had been waiting for me to leave. And in that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. The waiting game. The next day, I kissed her goodbye, threw my bag into the car, and drove away as if I were actually heading to the airport. But I wasn't going to any work trip. I parked 2 blocks away, pulled out my phone, and opened the camera feed. The screen flickered to life. My living room came into view. The couch. The front door. Everything was still. I took a deep breath and settled in. Waiting. Praying. Hoping. Even though I already knew the answer. Because deep down, I wasn't watching to see if something would happen. I was watching to see how bad it really was. I told her I had a work trip that weekend. A quick overnight stay for an important project. She smiled, kissed me goodbye, told me to have fun, as if I was going on some kind of vacation. I threw my bags in the car, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway like everything was normal. But the second I turned the corner, I killed the headlights, pulled over 2 blocks away, and waited. The longest wait of my life. I parked under a broken streetlight, my car hidden in the shadows. My phone sat on the dashboard, the camera feed open, showing a live view of my living room. The couch, the front door, the hallway leading upstairs. Everything was still. Everything was normal. I took a deep breath. Maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. Maybe I'd sit here all night watching an empty living room. Maybe I'd feel like an idiot in the morning. Maybe she'd spend the night alone, watching Netflix, texting me cute messages before going to sleep. God, I wanted that. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to go home tomorrow, feel guilty for ever doubting her, wrap my arms around her, and tell myself it had all been in my head. But then, at 10:42 p.m., the doorbell rang. She couldn't wait to see him. The moment the chime echoed through the house, she sprang up from the couch. She didn't hesitate. She didn't check the time. She didn't even glance around, as if she felt guilty or unsure. No, she practically ran to the door. My stomach clenched. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, my pulse hammering in my ears as she reached for the handle and pulled it open. And when she did, he walked in, like he'd done it 100 times before. Not a stranger, not a mistake. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. It wasn't a random guy. It wasn't a stranger she'd met at a bar. It was him, my best friend, the man I trusted, the same man who stood next to me on my wedding day, who toasted to our everlasting love, who told me how lucky I was to have her. And now, he was standing in my house, with my wife, my vision blurred with rage. I could hear my own breathing, sharp and ragged, my pulse pounding like a war drum. But I didn't move. I didn't storm out of the car. I didn't speed home and burst through the door like some blind, angry fool. No, I just watched, because I needed to see it all. How long had this been going on? The way they moved told me everything. They didn't hesitate. They didn't stumble over awkward greetings or nervous glances. No, she smiled. A real, genuine smile, one I hadn't seen in months. He smirked, stepping inside, his hands sliding to the small of her back as she closed the door behind him. And then, she leaned in, pressed her lips to his. Deep, slow, like a wife kissing her husband, like they belonged together. I felt like I was going to be sick. The worst part? It wasn't just the kiss. It wasn't just the way she looked at him, like he was the only man in the world. It was how comfortable they were, how routine it all seemed, like this wasn't the first time, like this wasn't a mistake, like this was something they had done before, over and over and over again. And I had been too blind to see it. I didn't look away. I sat there, gripping my phone, my entire body frozen, forcing myself to watch. Because if I looked away, if I let myself break, I'd lose. And I couldn't afford to lose. Not now. Not when I finally had the truth. The decision that changed everything. I could have rushed home. I could have thrown open the door, screamed, fought, demanded answers. But I didn't. I sat in that car. I watched them disappear into the house, into our home. I let the rage simmer, the betrayal burn, the pain settle into something colder. Because now I had everything I needed. And when I finally made my move, it wouldn't be a confrontation. It would be a reckoning. I knew him. I trusted him. He wasn't some faceless stranger, some mistake she regretted, some random guy she met in secret. No, he was my best friend, the man I had shared everything with, the man who sat across from me at every barbecue, who helped me move into my first apartment, who stood beside me as my best man, raising his glass and toasting to my lifelong happiness. The man who had looked me in the eyes countless times and told me he had my back. And now he was in my house, with my wife, And he didn't even hesitate. The lies I never saw. I sat there in my car, gripping my phone, watching the live feed from the hidden camera. My stomach churned as I saw them together. Too comfortable, too familiar. This wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This had been happening right under my nose, in my own home, while I had been too blind, too trusting, too damn naive to see it. I thought back to all the times we had hung out, the three of us. The dinners, the late-night drinks, the inside jokes. How many times had they exchanged glances, silent messages that I had been too oblivious to catch? How many times had I left the room, thinking nothing of it, while they stole moments behind my back? How long had I been the fool? The evidence I needed. On the camera, I watched as they sat down on my couch. The same couch where she and I had spent countless nights, wrapped up in blankets, watching bad TV, laughing until our stomachs hurt. Now, she was sitting there with him, leaning into him, her legs tucked under her hand resting on his thigh. It was so natural, so easy, like they weren't doing something disgusting, like they weren't betraying the one person who had loved them both unconditionally. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, she kissed him. The moment I snapped, not hesitantly, not nervously like someone making a mistake. No, she leaned in, slow, deliberate, her lips parting just slightly before pressing against his. Like she had done this 100 times before. Like it wasn't a mistake at all. And him? He didn't even hesitate. He pulled her closer. His fingers ran through her hair, his hands gripping her waist. I could see it, feel it. This wasn't lust. This wasn't a drunken accident. This was real. This had been happening. For how long? Months? A year? Longer? I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. I should have stormed in. I should have ripped him out of my house and beat the life out of him. But I didn't, because in that moment, as my world collapsed around me, something inside me shifted. I stopped feeling pain. I stopped feeling anything at all. The fake friendship. I thought back to every time we had hung out, every beer we had shared, every moment where I thought he was my brother in all but blood. I had told him everything about my relationship, about my fears, my dreams, my love for her. And all that time, he had been waiting for his moment, smiling to my face, lying to me, betraying me. And I had trusted him. I had invited the devil into my home, and he had smiled while destroying everything I had built. I had a choice. I could have stormed in, could have screamed, fought, demanded answers that wouldn't change anything. But no, that's what they would expect. And I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. No, I was going to be smarter. I was going to let them think they had won. Let them think they got away with it. And then, I was going to burn everything they had left to the ground. I wanted to believe, God, I wanted to believe that maybe this was their first time. Maybe it was a moment of weakness. Maybe she had regretted it the second it happened. Maybe it didn't mean anything. I was desperate for any explanation that made this less real. But the way she kissed him, the way he pulled her onto the couch like it was second nature, the way they didn't hesitate, not for a second, as if there was no fear, no guilt. This wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This was a routine, and I had been the fool who never saw it. How long had this been going on? I gripped the steering wheel of my car, watching the live feed from my phone, my entire body numb. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. The way they sat close, too close, their legs brushing, her hand resting on his thigh like it belonged there. The way he ran his fingers through her hair, his touch so familiar, so casual. Like this wasn't some big risk. Like this wasn't forbidden. Like this was normal. How many times had they done this? How many times had he walked into my house while I was gone? How many nights had she laid next to me, pretending she loved me, knowing she was already gone? I tried to remember the last time she kissed me the way she was kissing him now. I couldn't. The moment I knew it was over. Then she whispered something. The camera's microphone wasn't strong enough to catch it, but I saw the way her lips moved. Missed you. I stopped breathing. She missed him. Not me. Not the man she had promised forever to. Him. And the worst part? He didn't even answer. He just smirked. As if he knew. As if he knew she was his now. As if he knew he had already won. And I had been too blind, too trusting, too naive to realize I had lost a long time ago. The lies, the deception, the game. It hit me all at once. Every time she said she was going out with the girls. Every time she stayed late at work, claiming she had extra meetings. Every time I had reached for her in bed, only for her to turn away, mumbling that she was too tired. The pieces fell into place. This wasn't a single betrayal. This was months, maybe even years. And the entire time, she had been playing me for a fool, smiling in my face, kissing me goodnight, telling me she loved me, while sneaking around behind my back. And I had been too stupid to see it. The final straw. I should have felt heartbreak. I should have felt like my world was collapsing. But I didn't. Something inside me shifted. Something inside me hardened. Because now, there was no more doubt. No more questioning myself. No more excuses. This was who she really was. This was who he really was. And the only thing left to do was destroy them both. I didn't rush in. I didn't storm the house like some jealous idiot, screaming and throwing punches. No, I was patient. I was cold. I wanted her to think she was safe, to let her guard down, to believe, just for a moment longer, that she had gotten away with it. Because when I finally confronted her, I wanted to watch her world fall apart. The return home. The next morning, after an entire sleepless night, I got back in my car and drove home. I took my time, stopped for coffee, let the engine idle in the driveway for a few extra minutes, staring at the front door of the house I had once called home, the house where she betrayed me. Then I stepped inside, the perfect wife act. As soon as I walked in, she appeared from the kitchen, looking fresh, glowing, innocent. She had no idea. "Hey, baby," she said brightly, moving toward me with a smile that made my stomach turn. "How was the trip?" The trip. I almost laughed. Instead, I just stared at her. The same woman who had kissed another man in our home. The same woman who had whispered "missed you" to him while I was sitting in my car, watching it all unfold. The same woman who had looked me in the eyes for years and told me she loved me. Lies. All of it. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and forced my voice to stay even. "It was good," I said. And then I pulled out my phone. The moment everything changed. Her eyes flickered to it, just for a second, but I saw the shift. The way her smile froze. The way her body stiffened. She knew something was wrong, but she didn't know how much. Not yet. I swiped open the camera app, tapped play, and turned the screen toward her. There it was. Her. Him. Together. Clear as day. I watched her watch herself. Her smile vanished. Her face drained of color. Her hands trembled. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I tilted my head. "You tell me." The desperate lies begin. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. She opened her mouth, then closed it, her mind racing, searching for a way out. I waited, because I wanted to hear what she'd try first. Would she deny it? Would she blame me? Would she try to turn it around? She took a shaky breath and went with the classic. I can explain." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Explain?" I repeated, tucking my phone back into my pocket. "Sure. Go ahead. Explain to me why my best friend was in my house last night while I was gone. Explain why you kissed him. Explain why he touched you like he'd done it 100 times before." She flinched at my words. She was trapped, and she knew it. The tears that meant nothing. Then, like clockwork, the tears came. Big, fat, fake tears. Her breathing turned ragged. Her shoulders shook. "It was a mistake," she choked out, stepping closer. It meant nothing. I swear. I stepped back. She wasn't touching me ever again. A mistake? I repeated, my voice sharp as a knife. It was a mistake the first time, or the second, or the third, or every time you let him walk into our house while I was at work, thinking I'd never find out. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She had no excuse, because she knew the truth. She had been caught. There was no gaslighting her way out of this. No manipulación. No sweet words to fix what she had shattered. This was over. And this time, I was the one walking away. She stood there, frozen. Her mouth opened, but for a long moment, no words came out. Her face had gone pale, her body stiff, her breath coming in short, uneven gasps. I could see the wheels in her mind turning, spinning desperately, searching for an escape, for a way out. And then the tears, big, fat crocodile tears, welling up in her eyes as she clutched her hands to her chest like I had just accused her of something absurd. "It's not what it looks like," she gasped, voice trembling, already stepping into damage control mode. "Not what it looks like." I actually laughed. Cold, sharp, unforgiving. "So, you weren't on our couch last night?" I asked, my voice steady as steel. "You weren't with him?" Her lips trembled. And then, she crumbled. The breakdown. Her legs gave out. She dropped to her knees, her body shaking as full-body sobs racked through her. A pathetic, pitiful mess. Tears streamed down her face, her hands covering her mouth as if she could take it all back. "It was a mistake," she sobbed. "It was only one time. I swear. One time. One." I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth might crack. One time? She really thought I was that stupid? The final nail in the coffin. I pulled my phone out again, swiped through my camera roll, and tapped play. The screen lit up with another clip. A different night. Same couch. Same guy. Same betrayal. The moment she heard her own voice moaning his name, her sobs turned to panic. "No. No, no, please," she gasped, scrambling toward me. I took a step back. She wasn't touching me. Ever. Again. The desperate excuses. "It didn't mean anything," she choked out. "I swear, I never wanted to hurt you. I was lonely. I was confused. Stop." The word came out sharp, cutting through her frantic rambling. She fell silent, her tear-streaked face looking up at me with pure desperation. But I felt nothing. No sadness. No heartbreak. Just disgust. She knew it was over. "You lied to me." My voice was calm, but deadly. "For how long? 6 months? A year? Longer?" She shook her head violently. "No, it wasn't," she broke off, gasping for air. "I don't know." She didn't know. She didn't know. My stomach turned. I had spent years of my life loving this woman, and she didn't even know how long she had been throwing it all away. The final blow. I exhaled slowly, shoving my phone back into my pocket. "You know what?" I said, voice steady. "I don't care anymore." Her eyes widened in horror. "No, no, please, we can fix this. There is no we anymore." She let out a choked sob, reaching for me, but I stepped around her, walked to the door, grabbed my keys, turned back just once, and when I spoke, my voice was quiet, but it shattered her more than any yelling ever could. "I hope he was worth it." Then I walked out, and I never looked back. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I didn't demand an explanation, because I already knew everything I needed to know. The woman kneeling in front of me, sobbing, gasping, begging for me to listen. I didn't know her anymore. Maybe I never really did. So I did the only thing that made sense. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked to the door. That's when I heard it. Her broken, desperate voice, cracking under the weight of her own guilt. "Where are you going?" she choked out, scrambling to her feet. I didn't even hesitate. To get a lawyer. The moment she knew she lost. I didn't have to look back to know what was happening behind me. I could hear it. The sound of her breath hitching, her hands shaking as she reached out for me, but didn't dare touch me. She was breaking, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt nothing. Not pity, not anger, not sadness, just freedom, the begging and the lies. She fell apart right there. Her knees hit the floor with a thud, her body racked with sobs so violent she could barely breathe. "Please," she whimpered. "Please don't do this. We can fix this." I let out a small, bitter chuckle. Fix this? She thought this was something fixable, like I had misplaced my trust, instead of her shattering it into a million pieces. Like she could patch up the holes in our marriage with a few well-placed apologies. Like I was stupid enough to believe anything she said ever again. "What love isn't? I love you," she sobbed. "I never meant to hurt you." I turned back, just for a second, meeting her tear-filled eyes. "Love," I repeated, voice steady. I took a slow step toward her, watching as her breath hitched in her throat. "Love isn't sneaking around behind my back." Another step. "Love isn't inviting another man into our home, into our bed." Her lips trembled. "Love isn't lying to my face every single day, pretending you still care, when all the while you were waiting for me to leave so you could let him in." She collapsed into herself. Her sobs turned into gasps, her body shaking violently. But I didn't care, because love isn't betrayal. And I was done playing the fool. The best part? Walking out that door wasn't the end. Not even close. Because karma came for both of them. The fall of my best friend. My former best friend had no idea what was coming. By the time he found out I knew about the affair, it was already too late. I had sent the videos. To his boss. To his family. And most importantly, to his wife. The ultimate karma. Within 24 hours, his entire world imploded. His boss? Fired him. His wife? Divorced him. His life? Destroyed. And me? I walked away with everything. Her fate? She thought she could fix it. She thought maybe if she begged enough, if she promised enough, if she cried enough, I'd take her back. I never did. I never would. The last time I saw her, she was sitting alone in an empty house. The same house she had turned into a place of lies and betrayal. And I was already gone, because I had something she would never have again. A future without her. A future without lies. A future where I was finally free.